In the wake of Anna Nicole Smith's sudden death, a shocking scandal erupted around her baby daughter, Danny Lynn. Who was her true biological father? In the end, the DNA results were the biggest bombshell of all. In the early 90s, Anna Nicole Smith seemed to be everywhere, staring back at you with her sultry gaze. It appeared that she was set to follow in the footsteps of Marilyn Monroe or Pamela Anderson as a beauty icon. However, what followed was a tale that is as tragic as it is genuinely bizarre. Born Vicki Lynn Hogan in Texas in 1967, nothing about her beginnings suggested Vicki Lynn was destined to tread an extraordinary path. Smith's childhood was chaotic. Her parents separated and Smith moved away with her mother. Though she went to high school, she would not graduate with the rest of her class. In April 1985, she chose love over her education. Anna Nicole Smith was 17 when she married her co-worker, Billy Wayne Smith. Billy Wayne was only 16 at the time. The couple worked together at Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken. About 9 months after their marriage, the couple welcomed a son, Daniel Wayne Smith, and their lives were never the same again. Raising a newborn together proved too difficult for the teen parents, and they separated a year after Daniel was born. During this time, Smith worked as a checkout girl in Walmart and as a dancer at a club for gentlemen to make ends meet. It was in such a club that Smith's life would change forever. In October 1991, Smith was working at a club in Houston when she met J. Howard Marshall. Marshall was a petroleum tycoon who was worth millions. He was also 86 years old. Anna Nicole was 24 at the time. It was also around this time that Smith decided to pose for a very famous men's magazine, perhaps encouraged by Marshall. Smith reported being nervous when she auditioned for Playboy. Though she posed in the nude, she claimed that it didn't come naturally to her and that she tried to remain modest throughout the shoot. In March of 1992, she appeared on the cover of the magazine, and in May of that year, she was the centerfold. But this was only the beginning. Smith owed much of her success to timing. As she began to get recognition for her work in Playboy, Guess Jeans needed a new spokesperson after Claudia Schiffer had moved on. Smith landed the job. Her alluring black and white photographs launched Guess Jeans in 1992, and Smith officially adopted her stage name, Anna Nicole. After her success with Playboy and the Guess campaign, Smith became a household name worldwide. In 1993, H&M featured her image in a campaign across Norway and Sweden, and she was also named Playmate of the Year. That same year, she finalized her divorce from Billy Wayne. She left her old life behind. Now it was time for something new. During her stunningly quick rise to fame, Smith had remained close with her wealthy companion, J. Howard Marshall. Despite the 63-year age difference between them, something had blossomed between Smith and Marshall. They decided to marry in June of 1994. After she married Marshall, Smith spent a lot of her time denying the rumors that she'd only married him for his money. He was, after all, 89 years old, bound to a wheelchair, and his sons were almost 30 years older than she was. But Smith stuck to her story. She said it was love, and she was ready to prove it. About 2 months after her wedding to Marshall, New York Magazine featured Smith on their cover along with a tagline, "White Trash Nation." The piece was not very kind to Smith. In October of that year, Anna Nicole filed a lawsuit against the magazine stating they'd used the photo without her permission. They settled the matter quietly, but Smith's life was about to implode in a far more spectacular fashion. Anna Nicole's second marriage was over quicker than her first. In August of 1995, approximately 13 months after they married, J. Howard Marshall passed, and Smith's life was never the same again. Whether she married Marshall for his money or not, it was clear once he had died, Smith felt his estate owed her a portion. The will and his family disagreed. When J. Howard Marshall passed, his will made no mention of his very young wife. All of the money went to charity or his youngest son, E. Pierce Marshall. Smith claimed that Marshall intended to leave her half of his estate and that Pierce had stopped his father from doing so. She used this as a premise to sue in Texas probate court to get what she felt was rightfully owed. Things only got worse from there. Cases like this weren't uncommon, especially when a wealthy older man married a much younger woman. Most likely, it was expected that the dispute could be settled quickly in the Texas courts. And maybe it would have been, if not for Smith. While she was locked in a legal battle with her stepson over the inheritance, another problem emerged. After her career took off, Smith began hiring nannies to help her care for her son Daniel. But in 1994, her former nanny, Maria Chirado, filed a lawsuit against her. Chirado alleged that Smith, while intoxicated, would make unwanted advances on her. Chirado won the case, and as a result, Smith declared bankruptcy in 1996. That's when things really started to fall apart. Smith filed for bankruptcy in California. However, since she was still in a battle in Texas over her late husband's estate, the California court had to take those potential assets into consideration. While the LA systems grappled with Smith's bankruptcy case, she was busy making useful connections in her case regarding the Marshall estate, namely Marshall's older son, J. Howard Marshall III. His father disowned him some years earlier and left him out of the will completely. Smith and Howard III joined forces to get what they each felt they were owed. It was also during this time that Smith made another connection that would have a lasting impact on both her life and her legacy. In 1998, attorney Howard Stern became a part of Smith's counsel. His firm had been handling Smith's modeling contracts previously, and during this period, Stern became co-counsel in her fight with the Marshall estate. After 4 to 5 years of fighting and deliberation, the court systems were ready to start making some decisions. In 2000, the LA Bankruptcy Court declared that the Marshall estate owed Smith roughly $449 million. However, this wasn't the win that Smith thought it was. The Houston court system concluded that Marshall's original will was valid. Not only was Smith not owed anything, but they ordered her to pay Pierce's legal fees, which at this point were over $1 million. These rulings were in direct opposition to each other. It was now a matter for the federal court. Around this time, Smith was beginning to make considerations for her future. In 2001, she prepared her will with an attorney in Los Angeles. She left her entire estate to her son, Daniel. More surprisingly, she named Howard Stern the executor of the estate. It seemed that Smith and Stern had grown closer than anyone had imagined. As the federal court continued to deliberate the matter of Smith's various lawsuits, she continued to get on with her life and career. In 2002, she starred in a reality show about her life called The Anna Nicole Show. The show featured a stylized version of Smith's life and had a host of recurring characters, including a familiar face, her attorney, Howard Stern. There was no denying that they had become close. Somewhere around this time, their relationship became romantic, though romance and loyalty may not have gone hand in hand. Another man came into Anna Nicole Smith's life. Smith met Larry Birkhead in 2003 at a gala. Birkhead was a photographer and a real estate investor. He was also a rather private person. Though not much is known about their time together, one thing is certain: something happened between them. In 2002, the federal courts decreased the amount of money owed to Smith from $400 million to $88 million. Then the matter fell to a 3-judge panel in the appeals courts who voided that decision, stating that the federal courts did not have the power to overrule a probate court's decision. This took the matter to the Supreme Court. Anna Nicole Smith would have to wait 2 years to find out the fate of her estate. The case was finally brought before the Supreme Court in February 2006, and their decision did not come until May. It ruled in Smith's favor, though it did not grant her the money. It merely stated that Smith could fight for an appeal at the level of the federal court. Once again, Anna Nicole Smith's fate was uncertain. For years, rumors circulated about Smith's struggles with substance use. In April 2006, she checked into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. During her stay, she was evaluated by a psychiatrist who offered a difficult assessment. Smith was not only dependent on prescription medications, but was also living with mental health issues. As if that news weren't heavy enough, Smith soon found herself facing another turning point. June 2006 became one of the most turbulent months of her life. On the very first day of the month, Smith posted a video on her website joyfully announcing that she was expecting a child. But just 20 days later, tragedy struck when Marshall's son Pierce passed away. Even with his death, the long-running legal battle continued, with his widow continuing the dispute. On September 7, 2006, Anna Nicole Smith gave birth to a daughter in a hospital in the Bahamas. She was living with Howard Stern at the time, and they initially recorded the baby's name as Hannah Rose Marshall Stern. Unfortunately, what began as a joyful occasion would soon be overshadowed by tragedy. 3 days later, Smith's son Daniel, now 20, came to visit. Tragically, Daniel passed away unexpectedly due to a combination of health complications related to his substance use issues. He died right in the room. The loss left Anna Nicole Smith heartbroken. Throughout her life, Smith's son had always been her greatest comfort and priority. Losing him was a terrible blow. According to reports at the funeral, Smith was overwhelmed with grief and expressed that she could not imagine life without him. Even with the arrival of her daughter, the absence of her son weighed heavily on her heart. Just 9 days after Daniel's funeral, Smith and Stern hosted a commitment ceremony on September 28th. The ceremony was held in the Bahamas and had all of the formality of a wedding, though it was not legally binding. The ceremony may have been motivated by a desire to create a more stable home for their daughter, as well as by the attention and controversy surrounding her birth. On October 9, 2006, a second birth certificate was created for Smith's daughter. In the document, her name was changed to Dannylyn Hope Marshall Stern to honor Smith's late son. However, this birth certificate also named Stern as Dannylyn's father, a statement that did not sit well with everyone. Not long after the birth of Dannylyn, another man came forward claiming to be her father. Remember Larry Burkhead? Well, he believed he was in fact Dannylyn's father, and he was willing to fight for it. He filed a lawsuit over the matter, and a United States judge ordered DNA paternity tests. However, Smith, Stern, and Dannylyn were in the Bahamas at the time. In late 2006, Smith applied for permanent residency in the Bahamas. But it seemed that controversy followed her wherever she went. Reports surfaced that Shane Gibson, the immigration officer who approved her application, had been unusually close to Smith. Local newspapers even suggested the two had an intimate relationship, a scandal that ultimately led to Gibson's resignation. Smith's move to the Bahamas may have been motivated more by strategy than by a love of the tropical climate. Smith insisted that Stern was the biological father of her child, whether he was or not. Many believed that she and Stern relocated to the Bahamas to avoid the paternity testing that the U.S. authorities were requiring. The situation was complicated, and it was about to become even more so. On February 8, 2007, Smith returned to the United States and was staying in Florida. Tragically, she was later found unresponsive in her room. Her nurse attempted to revive her with CPR, but it was too late. Although Smith was taken to the hospital, she was beyond help. Following this tragedy, an investigation into her sudden passing began. It was concluded that she died of an accidental overdose. At the time of her death, Smith had 11 different prescription medications in her system. Burkhead was still making a public campaign for paternity over Danny Lynn. Once Smith had passed, he was all the more determined to prove that he was the girl's father and wanted custody of the child. Now that Smith was gone, however, it seemed that he had even more competition. On February 12, 2007, only 4 days after Smith's passing, Frederick Prince von Anhalt decided to throw his hat into the paternity ring. Despite being married to Zsa Zsa Gabor, Prince von Anhalt stated that he and Smith had had a relationship for over a decade. 2 days later, he began his appeal to also gain a DNA test to test for paternity, and he wasn't alone. Suddenly, there was one more contender for the paternity of Danny Lynn. Alexander Denk worked with Smith on her show The Anna Nicole Show. He also claimed to have had a relationship with Smith and believed that there was a chance that he could be Danny Lynn's father. While Denk's claims never went beyond a public claim, Prince von Anhalt seemed more serious about involving himself in the matter. His attorney claimed that he took several lie detector tests to prove he believed he could be the father. Prince von Anhalt even submitted DNA to an LA clinic despite never being involved in the case. In the end, the real question seemed to come down to Stern or Burkhead. After much drama and speculation circulating the matter, the official proceedings regarding Danny Lynn's true father began on February 21, 2007, less than a month after Smith's passing. The case only involved Stern and Burkhead. It would drag on for almost 2 months before an answer was announced, and the fate of little Danny Lynn was finally settled. In the end, after a long contested battle, the answer came down to a simple question: who shared DNA with Danny Lynn? Based on the results, there was a 99.9% probability that Burkhead was the child's biological father. Danny Lynn's name was officially changed for a 3rd time to Danny Lynn Hope Marshall Burkhead, and she has remained with her father ever since. However, why did so many men care about the paternity of this little girl? One of the reasons that Danny Lynn's paternity had become so hotly contested was likely because Smith's battle over her right to the Marshall estate carried on in the name of her daughter. There was a chance that Danny Lynn was going to be very wealthy. After the original Supreme Court ruling, the case returned to the federal court, and it would be a long fight. The court wouldn't give another ruling until March 2010. At that point, the Court of Appeals voided the amendment that the estate owed Smith $88 million. Still, this wasn't the end. Rather than resolving the matter once and for all, this ruling triggered another round of appeals and denials. In September of that same year, the case returned to the Supreme Court, this time ruling once and for all whether Marshall's estate owed Smith any money. 3 years after her passing, Smith's battle continued. Finally, on June 23, 2011, the Supreme Court issued its ruling. The Marshall estate was not required to pay Smith or her descendants any money, including the sum the bankruptcy court had awarded her 11 years earlier. The matter was, at last, largely settled. Smith's bankruptcy case did not officially close until October 2022, more than 25 years after it began and 15 years after Smith had passed. Anna Nicole Smith's life was full of hardship and struggle. One can only hope that her daughter will be spared the same challenges and live a life far less troubled than her mother's. If you enjoyed this Factinate video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Want a say in who we cover next? Join our membership program through the link in the description for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.